you're robbing your own account because that's to me. I was like, that's the craziest thing. If I'm robbing somebody, I'm gonna give them my ATM card because first of all, if you're at a bank and you put your ATM card, your account information automatically comes up. And this is Bank of America, so it's not like it's some small mom and pop. This is a national database that they have.
Right. But the point is that this is the Black respectability politics of it all. If he came in, he must have had to come in with a suit and a tie and talk a certain way in order to be seen able as somebody that
could get $12,000. Yeah.
But a Zuckerberg could come in with the same funky ass shirt that he's been wearing for the last 38 years or however long Facebook has been out and look plain Jane as day and not be questioned. That's what I want to, talk about. Like we still 100%. Have to present a certain way, right? But this Black 100%. Man who got a hoodie on or whatever could never be. And the irony is that in Atlanta, Atlanta, coach, you got people coming all the time into banks for money, for dollars. Right. Maybe they're trying to take out 500, but I don't know. But I thought that was really interesting. But you said a point, and I think that's important. You were like, now we have to add banking while Black on the list. It's been on the list. There's been actually a whole series or lineage of people that talk about they go and try and take out money. They're told that they can't take the money. They try and cash a check. They're told that they can't. That was just like 2 or 3 weeks ago. There was this Black woman who tried to cash a check in Chase or PNC, and they didn't allow her. So banking while Black has already been a thing. It's just now it's even imploded because got more attention because it's Ryan Coogler. This dude made the industry over $1 billion. I have to say that.
Let's embark on the Ark Republic to hear current news that's published. More than gossip and chatter, covering current affairs that matter. We talk issues with professional views, all keeping you in queue. We wanted a higher vibe for these days and times to free the voices and minds, reporting the sign of the times so all can build. Let's shine, yeah.
What up, wherever you are in the universe? My name is Kaya Nyambi Shivers. Welcome to Ark Republic. Brother Dame, how are you doing?
I am well. How are you today?
I am doing well. I have to say that camera is exceptional. Got you looking nice.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay, I'm looking a little janky because I'm not at my regular, shindig.
Man, stop it. You never look janky. Cut it out.
I appreciate it, but whether I'm in a bat cave or wherever I'm in space, wherever it is, if there's something that we need to talk about, one thing, I could call you. You'd be like, let's do this. So it's the wee hours in the night for me, but it is a nice afternoon, Sunday afternoon. Thank you for taking this time out. Let's get into these topics that we have. The first one we're going to talk about is Ryan Coogler.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know who released it or how this tape got out. But the tape that got out recently was of him attempting to take out $12,000 at an Atlanta bank. He's taping Wakanda 2 or Black Panther 2 in Atlanta. And in his attempts to take out $12,000 in cash, the teller suspected that there was something funny and funky going on with him, ends up calling the police. We'll get more into the details. And so he was detained very briefly and let go. This happened in January. It's March right now. But this has sent a maelstrom of conversation. And what we say, Black people say all the time, it doesn't matter what degrees, money, clout, whatever it is you have. In this system, you will, in some way, shape, or form, and at some point in your life, you'll be treated like a nigger. A nigger. Okay.
Yeah.
Nigger. All right. And I'm not saying that to be facetious or whatever, but I always use this quote that I don't know if Malcolm X necessarily said it, but it was definitely in the movie. And he said, what do you call a Black man with a PhD? A nigger with a PhD. That's what the system does. So let's get into these details and talk about this. What are your initial thoughts on this?
My initial thoughts are, like you said, now we could add banking while Black to something that's going to get the police called on you. You know what I mean? So when it comes to situations like this, I always, I do my best to take all the details out and look at all the details and try to figure out, was this just a misstep? Was it something that really doesn't have anything to do with race? As you look into this, it wasn't just a misstep. It was it was a young black lady who was the teller, where, that also shows we can be profiled by our own. Mm-hmm. He wrote on the back of the note, because this is one thing I want to talk about, because a lot of people are like, well, he's in a bank with sunglasses on and a mask, and he wrote on the note, count my money somewhere else so I could see how the teller would be. And I was like, no, because it's not like he gave her a note and said, get me $12,000 in unmarked bills and count it on the side. That's not what happened. He said, I would like to pull $12,000 from my account, but I would like to be discreet. So could you do the count somewhere else? That note made her go say, let me call my manager over here. And the manager, it was a failure on the manager's part, right? So now we first have the failure on the teller's part. Then you have the failure on the manager's part, because the manager didn't come over to Ryan, didn't try to verify any information. And it's apparent, if anyone's heard the 911 call, she said, yeah, this dude is in here. He's been kind of weird, been kind of shady. He asked me for asked me to count $12,000 out and gave me a note. And the 911 caller was like, okay, but he gave you his ID? She was like, yeah. Like, he gave you his ATM card? Yeah. But he acting so shady, I didn't even check. What?
Yeah, she said, well, he gave me a California ID. There's so much we need to break down in this stuff. But I'm listening. Go ahead, Dane.
And so then, after all this, I'm like, well, so from the beginning all the way to the 911 call, there was not one point where the teller nor the manager said, let's try to verify this before we call the cops. And this is the part where I say, do you think that a white customer coming in asking for $12,000, who wrote the same note, who had on sunglasses and a mask, because of course, we have to wear masks. So it's like, how can you penalize him? Like, oh, he being weird, he wearing a mask. Like, that sounded crazy to me. But like, do you think a white customer would have gotten to that point that early, that fast, without someone trying to verify the ID, someone trying to verify the funds? And even worse, they like held the people that were there waiting for him like they were getaway drivers before having any evidence, literally just based on like, I don't know, it feels shady. Like, because that was basically her whole vibe on the 911 calls. Like, we ain't really did nothing, but it feels shady.
Right. And the part that when he gets detained and he's outside, he was like, I think you need to Google. That Outland came out. He's like, you need to Google me, bro. This is not going to look good for you, bro. And the part that upset me the most was, there was a point where it was very clear that the police didn't give a fuck who he was, right? Period. And you saw his demeanor shift.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, he shrunk.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you see in real time a point in which a Black man who's made over $1 billion for a whole bunch of people.
Right.
At the hands of these, you know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? These paramilitary law enforcement officers realizes that they don't care who he is, and that he may not see his daughter and his wife if he continues to just simply try to explain to them that this is an accident and this is an issue, right? And so that's the part in that it really infuriates me. And so, but let's let's break this down more into detail. Let's start with, he goes in there with a mask and sunglasses. We're in COVID. Most businesses require you to still wear a mask, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, that's the first thing. And the joke, I don't know for you, but the joke in my family is, I don't care if the whole world stops wearing a mask. I'm going to wear my mask until 2025.
I'm the same way. Me and my family said the same thing. I don't trust y'all.
Yeah, my mother's like, make sure you triple mask, mama, triple mask. Yeah, make sure, because you in New York, So you know what I'm saying. So that's a running. It's a running truth, not joke. It's a humorous truth amongst Black people. Is that we're still wearing the mask because we don't trust it. Okay.
Yeah.
Wearing sunglasses, I cannot. You know what I mean. Wearing sunglasses, but in Atlanta, when the sun is out.
You're robbing your own account. Because like that's to me, I was like, that's the crazy thing. If I'm robbing somebody, I'm gonna give them my ATM card because first of all, if you're at a bank and you put your ATM card, your account information automatically comes up. And this is Bank of America, so it's not like it's some small mom and pop. This is a national database that they have.
Right. But the point is that this is the Black respectability politics of it all. If he came in, he must have had to come in with a suit and a tie and talk a certain way in order to be seen able as somebody that
could get $12,000. Yeah.
But a Zuckerberg could come in with the same funky ass shirt that he's been wearing for the last 38 years or however long Facebook has been out and look plain Jane as day and not be questioned. That's what I want to, talk about. Like we still 100%. Have to present a certain way, right? But this Black 100%. Man who got a hoodie on or whatever can never be. And the irony is that in Atlanta, Atlanta, coach, you got people coming all the time into banks for money, for dollars. Right. Maybe they're trying to take out 500, but I don't know. But I thought that was really interesting. But you said a point, and I think that's important. You were like, now we have to add banking while Black on the list. It's been on the list. There's been actually a whole series or lineage of people that talk about they go and try and take out money. They're told that they can't take the money. They try and cash a check. They're told that they can't. That was just like 2 or 3 weeks ago. There was this Black woman who tried to cash a check in Chase or PNC, and they didn't allow her. So banking while Black has already been a thing. It's just now it's even imploded because got more attention because it's Ryan Coogler. This dude made the industry over $1 billion. I have to say that. So
a couple of times
over, right?
Right.
So then, all right, let's get to the point where he's what you said. He gives you the ID. And he plugs in his information, right? On the call, remember she says, well, because you could tell the 911 operator was a Black person. That was a Black person. That was a Black person. 100%. Right. And I'm not shitting on anybody. I'm using a little potty language. I'm not shitting on anybody, but the way I read the teller, it sounded like she was not as critical thinking as perhaps we like, right? Mm-hmm.
That's a nice way to say it.
Okay. All right. Because I have some choice words.
She ain't the sharpest knife in the drawer. I'll say it.
Totally. Right. And I don't get this thing of people saying she was pregnant. What the fuck that got to do with, excuse me, what does that have to do with what we're talking about? Okay. Excuse me. I'm just all popping off at them. But what does that have to do with it? Like as if trying to, it was hormonal, trying to give some empathy for somebody. It wasn't just a mistake. You could have gotten somebody killed that day.
And there were so many steps you could have taken before it got there. Like, even if you felt uncomfortable, again, I blame it on her. And then you got to blame the manager because as a manager, even if she feels that uncomfortable, the manager should have took other steps before. Like, okay, well, he plugged in his ID and his, he plugged in his ATM and his ID. Well, let's go at least verify that before we call the police.
Well, the manager's a loser. Okay. And the manager should get fired as well as she should get fired. I'm gonna explain why, but let me say something that I caught. 2 things I caught. I don't know if you caught that, but when she was on the phone explaining to the 911 operator and she told the 911 operator that all she saw was that he had a California ID. I had to pause. I lived in Atlanta. And what a lot of people don't know, and I've been doing a lot of work. I said this to you before on trap music. And so in order to understand trap music, you've got to understand the conditions, as you said, that create something like a trap music. Well, right. Atlanta was one of the few cities in America, period, where Black people thought that they could go and enterprise themselves. So after the civil rights era, like we're talking about the 70s, you had the first Black mayor, and you had this Black mayor who, what was it? What's the mayor's name? Andrew Young, I want to say. Who's the mayor of Atlanta, he actually is requiring or mandating that corporations must do business, like 20% of businesses, you must be Black businesses. That's why you got that nice airport that's out. So people are like, damn, I could go to Atlanta. So people from New York and all these other places, the quote unquote free spaces, which weren't really free, are moving to Atlanta, right? Because it's this new,
Black
what they
Mecca,
see as this new Mecca, right? Harlem is gone, right? Harlem is smoked out at this point. And so there's a competition that ensues between locals and the migrants. And still today that comes up, because when I was in Atlanta and I had my California ID, it was like, oh, another one of you are coming down here to take our job. Oh, yes. Wow. And then another thing is you have Southern hospitality or Southern ways of being. And then you have these rude ass Northerners, and these ghetto ass Californians coming in, right? So there was a lot of texture in that. And him and his outlandness was like, read the back. Excuse me, sir, read the back. Excuse me, sir, read the back. Right. So this is where I can see that. And then the second thing, right? You know what I mean? So that's another thing. And so immediately he was, I think, in my opinion, she immediately framed him as a thug or an out of town thug. That's coming. You're going to one of these ninjas coming in, you know what I'm saying, with no manners and probably a dope deal or whatever, like all these things I thought was interesting and stuff. And then the second part, which goes to why she and the manager should be fired. Why is she making the call and the manager's not making a call? See, this is why we know she's not the sharpest knife in the bunch is that she made the call. As an employee, those of you listening, the manager is the one that needs to do all of that. So what happens is that the manager thinks it's like, oh, I didn't do anything. She brought the issue to me. She ultimately made the decision, right? Mm-hmm. And then she Black. So now you have these people saying, well, you can't really call it racism. You still can call it racism. Because the most sophisticated form of racism, I have to get who this came to me, because it was something I read, heard from somebody, but it's the most sophisticated form of oppression, they say, not racism, but the most sophisticated form of oppression is when the oppressor is not even in the room to do the bidding of maintaining the oppressive regime. It's those who are oppressed that are actually carrying out their own oppression. That's the most sophisticated form. So she is a tool of racism.
Mm-hmm. Now, we've seen this a lot, and we talk about this a lot, in a lot of our other shows. Because like you said, I think people think racism is boiled down to that good old garden variety KKK. And like, no, it's so much more intricate and so much more nuanced than that when you come to talking about how the system moves and how, like, for example, and I'm not saying all, but just for example, how you have some police officers who are Black who enforce those same kind of biases as the racist white cops do.
Or worse, or do it better.
Or do it better, right? And so it's the same principle here. Like, you saw a Black man trying to pull $12,000 out, because I don't think your alarm would have been raised if it was $500. So that matters, right? Like the dollar amount, because in your mind, you're like, well, he's not supposed to be able to have this much money to pull out of a bank account. And then on top of it, like you said, it's California ID. Oh, something is up. And I feel, because she was like, I'm so distraught. And like the 911 caller was like, what? Like, she was really too like, why? Like, he gave you his ID. Like, are you sure? Did you verify? Well, it looks so shady. I didn't even want to verify.
Yeah. And the operator was like, well, she said something to the matter of,
you're like, well, I'll send somebody,
but you really need to follow through protocol or something like that. Like, or you could tell the 911 operator was reluctant.
And it's funny because people who read it all said, oh, I understand that. And then until they heard the 911 call, and they're like, oh, this is some bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it was written in a way to make it look like he was at fault. It was written in a way to make it look like he was being shady. And I didn't like that either. When it first came out in the press, it was written way like, well, like you said, well, he had on a hoodie and sunglasses and a mask, like all these qualifiers to make it look like they had a point in what they did. And I did not like that, how it was rolled out in the press. So when the 911 call came, I'm like, oh no, here it go. Check it out. Everybody who was a man and then talking about, well, I read it and it seems like I could understand it. No, listen to it. And once you listen to the call, it's like, oh yeah, no, this sounds really crazy.
Well, I mean, there's a couple of issues. Like even when I first heard it, I didn't think it was shady at all. I mean, there was a lot of questions that came up, and it was not even it just automatically was stinking, because you know what us broke people don't know. I'm including myself in there, who was never taking out $12,000 before in a chunk, is usually you go to a concierge bank where you sit down, you have some coffee, and or some sparkling water or whatever it is, and you get the money handed to you. But it must have been the case where there wasn't any of that around. So you go up to a regular teller. But a lot of people don't know. I know this about Atlanta. Atlanta is mostly broke folk, po folk, working class folk, rather than this mirage or this facade of being this, everybody balling out
Black
of control.
elite.
Yeah, bullshit. So what he was saying is that I don't want everybody knowing that I'm about to take out this chunk. So count this discreetly. Don't be rolling this stuff, all the money, because I've taken out, a chunk of cash where they roll it through the counter, all in the front. And in Atlanta right now, as we talked about with a lot of cities that are going on, robberies.
The wolves are out.
Yeah, the wolves, because people are broker and poorer.
Yeah, and I've seen this, like, even for myself, like if I'm putting a certain amount, I'm like, yo, can you like put that in the envelope before you even hand it to me? You know what I'm saying? And then sometimes they tell us like to count it out hella loud and smacking the $100 bills. I'm like, yo, like, chill out, like 5,000. I'm like, yo. So I can understand the need to say, hey, can you count this quietly on the side and then bring it back? Because I don't want people seeing me grab and get $12,000 counted out to me. Because if you look, even if you just in line, think about it, Kaya, and we know how most Bank of Americas are, set up. Even if you're in line, it's not like you can't see the customer in front of you. So if you looking, you don't even got to see how much he's getting. You could just look at how long and how many bills he's getting. He's coming up. You're at risk. You know what I mean? But they didn't care about the safety of the customer at all. They just cared about this weird narrative that they built in their own minds and then acted upon it. Because look, even if you felt uncomfortable, if something felt weird and uneasy, again, there were multiple steps to take before you act on it and call the police and say, I feel like we're being robbed because he wants me to take money out of his own account. That was crazy.
And then when he's detained, the officers, like there was something like, the officers began to talk to him like he was this inarticulate, over emotional, nonsensical 12-year-old boy. Right. That's the part. This is the part where in the movie of life where the shit can go wrong really, really, really. It just depends on how, well, maybe or maybe not, but how the other person or how Ryan Coogler would act, right?
Right.
Totally humiliating you and reducing you because they knew that they made a mistake by that point. They knew
and what we know with cops like that, because I've dealt with this myself, when they made a mistake like that, they're going to double down, though. They're going to double down instead of being like, oh, I'm sorry, my mistake. No. Cops like that, they like to double down, especially when it's a young black man, when it's a black man who they feel like got too much mouth on him. I feel like it's a black. So it's like, oh, well, we're going to find something. Like I remember one cop told me, like, I could arrest you for cursing. I'm like, yo, show me where that is in the law books. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, you can't curse at me. I'm like, there's no law that says you can't curse at a cop. But they really, really believe that. They really believe like they're above reproach. Or like, if you got to talk to me a certain kind of way, and if you don't, I can just find a way to put you in jail because I don't like the way you talk to me. And that happens way too often and way too many places when it comes to black men just trying to stand up for their own humanity.
I mean, this idea of being the ultimate authority on one's freedom and life is what it is that we're talking about. And when somebody presents that they have either outspoken you or outthought you, or simply that you can't pin them on anything, then this stuff comes up. But I want to talk about another part of the overall irony of it is he's taping Black Panther 2, Wakanda. The irony of it is that he's taping a movie about a fictitious Black nation that has so much wealth and so much power, that
they can operate outside of colonization. Because they even talk about operating outside of the colonized mind.
Let me tell you, sometimes the ancestors tap you on the ass and make you kind of rethink this whole shit. You are in Atlanta providing jobs locally. You providing cops jobs because you know those sets. have security.
Yep.
You're bringing industry and money and prestige back to Atlanta. And here you are stopped getting money out of a bank.
Yeah.
And the irony of it all, right? I was like, wow, what insanity. And the first Black Panther, let me tell you, the first Black Panther, the production, the aesthetic, abso-fucking-lutely gorgeous. However, there were some things in there that I thought were problematic. And part of it was the creation of this mythical Black place upon what I call this tired old pathology of Black Americans. This is what I mean. The villain is a Black American who has an African daddy and an African mama who smoked out somewhere we've never seen.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Who is well-intentioned in terms of Black liberation and struggle, but is a naive Black American with no history. The lineage is disrupted. And so even though well-intentioned, ignorant, culturally deficient, and really doesn't know any better. However, you have this Wakanda, this mythical place that has history, culture, lineage, an army, all of this stuff, doctors, healing, and this technology, right? But the person that disrupts it is this well-meaning but ignorant, naive, bitter
Black American.
Black American.
I never thought about it like that through that lens.
Right? Who gets killed. And just to kind of make them look a little bit sexy, be like, bury my bones in the ocean.
Right. Right.
Ironic, Ryan Coogler, that you become that dude in real life.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah.
Anyway, that was just my little fast thing. Okay, last thoughts on this Ryan Coogler thing.
Well, of course, as Black men often try to do, Ryan Coogler tried to take the high road. Oh, it's been handled, it's been done, taken care of, basically trying to everybody chill, leave it alone. But I'm kind of hoping we get past that point of where we want to stop keeping stuff quiet, and we're okay with making some noise sometimes when, we're being wrong. Like if something is done to us, we should be allowed to, yell to the heavens, like, yo, this ain't right. And I don't want this to happen to anybody else, regardless of your economic lot. You know what I mean? Because for every time that happened to Ryan Coogler, I'm sure this happened to a brother who was just trying to take out $2,000 or $3,000 in certain neighborhoods. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and
it's exhausting.
Right. I guess maybe my last question is that what makes somebody who makes a prolific film like Fruitvale Station, right? And even, Black Panther, which I have to say this because I can't say this enough. The whole idea of the Black Panther comic strip comes from the Black Panther Democratic Bloc from Lowndes County, Alabama, of Black farmers. This is before the Black Panther Party. This is where Stokely Carmichael, who renames himself Kwame Ture, gets this idea of the Black Panther power, right? So it's really interesting, like what makes somebody who creates these two films, says publicly, it's done, it's settled, I don't want to talk about it. I'm either like, there must be something that is in the works that's going on, or perhaps maybe you're embarrassed and you don't want to talk about it, or maybe Bank of America is the major sponsor now of Black Panther 2. I'm trying.
Right. It could be any of those things, but I do feel like there's a reason, like you said.
Well, I'm waiting to see, but I'm not going to hold my breath on it. But this is a pivotal moment about banking while Black. Let me say this. Oh, I forgot to say this about banking while Black. So I was waiting to see people come out and say, well, this is why we need. I was waiting for Killer Mike specifically.
Right. Well, I know somebody that was it Jesse. What's my man's name?
Jesse Jackson or Jesse Williams?
Jesse Williams. I think Jesse Williams came out on the heels of this, talking about is it Greenwood?
Greenwood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Greenwood he came out on the heels of this, talking about Greenwood Bank when this happened. Like, yo, this is why you need to come over here to Greenwood.
Well, it also brings up another point is that I'm gonna keep it I'm gonna keep it funky, is that I've banked at a couple of Black banks. Ark Republic's first account was at the Black Bank in Newark, New Jersey. It was trash ass experience. From setting up the account to the tellers to trying to get some decent service to when they closed my account when they didn't tell me. Okay, so let's keep it funky. I don't know about you, but most of the conversations I've had with people that have established or attempted to establish some type of relationship at a Black bank has been horrible. And this is me. I heard the call of Killer Mike. I said, you know what, Killer Mike, you're right. I'm going to go do that. And this is what happened. So part of it is that, theoretically, Ryan Coogler shouldn't have to go to a commercial bank like Bank of America. Right. Theoretically, but also not theory, but from a practical point of, if you want to see his money, I understand why.
Well, and I think this is something that, and it's a problem that I hope they can figure out at Greenwood, because I think I can't recall the name of the bank, that there was a bank that like Janet Jackson was supposed to be involved in
LA.
In LA with the ownership. And I think a lot of the same problems arose. And there's a couple of other that I won't name because I had an account at one of them. And it was so not it. Like to the point where I literally went to cash a check written up by them. And they was like, yeah, you got to come back Tuesday. Like, you know how when somebody give you a check, your auntie give you a check, like, don't cash it till Tuesday? The bank did that to me. Mm-hmm. The bank was like, yeah, you got to come back Tuesday to cash. I was like, yo, this is wild. And same thing, like you said, close my account without telling me. But I think a lot of those banks have been set up for failure because of the long-lasting infrastructure that Bank of America has and the backing that they have, because I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of Black banks don't have is the backing of their funds, right? Like Bank of America has a huge backing of their funds with their insurance from the government and all these other places where, you know, when they had that breach and everybody was, you know, getting hacked, they could take that loss and it won't do nothing. A lot of these Black banks, they get hit like that, it's done. It's over. They don't have those same resources. They don't have the same backing of their dollars. Because I think a lot of Bank of America, because they have so much of the world's money, but again, like I said, and because of the insurance that they get, with the amount of money they have, the kind of insurance they get, the dollar for dollar backing that they have, they are able to build and continue an infrastructure that is hard for the smaller banks to build and grow out, which goes from the top down. So that culturally affects the amount of money that can go in, the amount of money that can come out. It affects the people you can hire, the amount of money you can pay to hire people so you can hire good help. You know what I mean? So there's like a whole, like, I know it's a whole other conversation, but there's a whole bunch of nuanced stuff that goes into it. The amount and how hard it is, because like I said, speaking to some of the Black bankers, that's what they were talking about, like how hard and how difficult it is to maintain when your competition is backed by all these dollars, all this insurance, and they basically, there's no way that they're going to crumble and go under.
Right. I mean, but, you know, I mean, there's a history in that because we did have banks. The Freedman Bank was one of them, and the United States government gutted it in one of the recessions. And so there's a history with Black people in banking, you know, and not trusting the banking institutions. And like you said, everything you said, in terms of a Black bank not having the backing, the institutional, the institutional backing. I think Greenwood Bank initially was not FDIC.
No, it wasn't.
From what it was not FDIC insured. And I don't even know if it is right now FDIC insured. I think what they're doing, it's like they have an actual bank that is FDIC insured as kind of like their fiscal representation. That's the last time I looked into that. I don't know if that's what it is now, but they said they were going to come out, you know, sometime, I think last June or whatever, and they just kind of came out within the last month or two. And I knew they ran into all these complications.
It's like you said, it's like, so it's you know, it's a lot of institutional things that, you know, are involved in stopping Black banks from being able to like flourish the way they should and the way they need to in order for us to totally get away from them in that system.
Right. So, I mean, And so, yeah, we do need to get a banker on there to kind of explain and break down the different things. But nonetheless, that does not excuse poor customer service. I'm talking about, I mean, horrible customer service. Like there were quite a few people, even people I was shocked that during the George Floyd thing, they set up accounts at Black banks. A sister or two of mine set up account at a Black bank, and they had to snatch it. You know what I'm saying? They had to snatch it because, like for me, for Ark Republic, I would when they closed it, it actually created a negative point on Ark Republic's credit. Right.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's like, it's fine when you set up the account, but when you're having issues with keeping the account, it seems like nobody is around. So, and I had the privilege to talk to like some people who work in the banks and really have great intentions. But there's just a lot of flaws. There's a lot of flaws that we need to explore more about. But it's building institutions. I was talking to Africa. I know I got to get y'all on to have a conversation because he talks about we need to build our own institutions. This is very hard. Like institutions are generations. And as you said, Janet Jackson, I forgot how much millions of dollars she put into that bank in LA in order. And I think it shut down. It ended up.
Yeah, it did. It ended up shutting down.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know, Ryan Coogler, maybe this gives you more inspiration to have a deeper Black Panther too. But I'm waiting for Bank of America to do something.